Hey guys, let me explain how websites work.
Yay, puppets!
I feel like I'm really starting to get there.
You sure are, son. You sure are.
He's very affirming. I like this puppet. All right. Any other announcements for? Oh, start the show. VoteJim.net. Go to VoteJim.net. Vote for me. Best of Las Vegas. Only therapist you probably know.
From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. It's time for our New Year's resolution check-in.
What?
If you had spend more time at home, you're winning. And now broadcasting from the churn of that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Yeah, apparently Jacob was explaining in the Patreon that pictures have resolutions too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know what they're reaching for, but
right.
That's cool.
No, I actually thought about the New Year's resolution thing the other day because Laura and I were going someplace. We were picking up Lucille's barbecue.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, before the game last night.
Yeah.
So we went over to pick up our food, and we were driving and, of course, making fun of other people's driving.
Sure. Yeah.
Because people drive terrible down here.
Yes.
And then we realized, like, that was our New Year's resolution.
Was to drive better?
No, was to be less judgmental of
other people. Wow.
And then I
remember you saying that.
Yeah, and then I thought about it. Like, I was like, in 2020, how many people have just, like, forgot that New Year's even happened?
Yeah.
That there was New Year's resolution. Like, is anybody keeping track of that anymore?
I am, because mine was to publish my book. And I am I mean, I could have done it months ago. I'm just too chicken shit to do it. And so, like, but I've been trying to get myself to do it, and I'm almost there.
I thought you did it.
No.
You have a copy of it.
Yeah, that was a proof copy.
Oh.
That's why, I don't know if you noticed it, but on the thingy it says not for sale, blah, blah, blah. That's literally just from
thought that was part of the cover.
No, the publishing company sends that to you to say,
on there,
look at it.
On every book.
Yeah, not for sale, not for resale.
Yeah. Also not for reading.
Not for reading, not for human consumption. May be harmful. Yeah, I should get a Surgeon General's warning on there. Known in the state of California to be toxic.
Right.
What's left of the state of California.
Yeah,
Yeesh,
no,
man,
terrible.
It's been rough. But yeah, so my New Year's resolution is to publish that book. So
cool.
Right now, I'm mentally telling myself I'm going to publish it on my birthday and then let people know about it. So then it will be done in 2020.
And your birthday is in December?
December 1. December 1.
Way to push that to the very last
minute. Yeah. But still achieves my goal. It took a long time. Publishing a book was hard. It took a lot. Like, there was a lot of steps to this.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of people publish books.
Well, that's true. It's true. But it was hard for me.
Every time I
go back to the Patreon where we literally...
I go into a bookstore, I'm like, look at all these people that can publish books.
Jim
we just spent 15 minutes in the pre-show talking about how incompetent we are in setting up an online store. Yet you were able to publish a book.
You should be impressed. Okay? Now that we've all clarified how hard it is to learn to do something and to do anything, I've almost got a book published.
So either you just became very
it was
skilled,
hard.
Or it was actually really easy to do.
No, it was very hard to do and took me an entire year to even get close to it. I've been writing this book for 10 years. It's 120 pages.
I'm not talking about writing the book.
Okay. But yeah.
Publishing
is hard. There's a lot that goes into this. But I'm almost there. I could do it right now. I could click the button right now. But I can't do it because I'm just scared.
Of what?
That there's mistakes. That there's still mistakes. And I've even hired a professional editor.
Jim, the whole book was a mistake.
Anybody who reads it is going to say,
I feel so comforting. Can you put on the hand puppet and tell me that again? That would just really help me. You could get out the hand puppet and say it again. Then it's more comforting. Yeah, there you go. We just got to draw some little eyes on your hand there, and then you can mouth it to me.
So anyway,
therapy.
Yeah, we had a question come in about a TV show.
Yeah.
So we've actually had a couple questions come in asking for our opinion about stuff.
Yeah. Always a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always a bad idea.
Yeah.
But actually,
always.
No. So there was one that was a YouTube channel, and if you were the one that wrote that in, we've seen it. sorry, I haven't actually watched much of the YouTube channel yet, so I don't
Okay.
have a good opinion on it yet.
Great.
We got, I think did this come in through Twitter? It was Andrea who sent it in. I don't know
Okay. Probably through Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. But she asks about, let me pull this up here and read it. I should have had this available.
That's fine. I'm just going to sit here and play with these toys on this table.
So she says, "Hey Jim," I guess like no one else is here.
Yeah.
I have another pod.
Hey,
therapy
PodTherapy
question.
guys. Damn it.
What is your and Nick's opinion or
See, I mentioned.
feelings towards MTV's new show, 16 and Recovering?
Yo, MTV Raps.
Yo, MTV, right, that one. Yeah.
Also, when we were discussing this, even pre-show, I don't even think we were recording. We were talking about what we were going to put on the script, and Nick was talking about the 16 and Pregnant on MTV, and
No,
just
16 and Recovering.
whatever. And
Same thing.
I'm pretty sure there's an overlap. But, yeah, Jacob's head just popped up and was like, "MTV is existing? Like, is that still a thing?" Like,
Oh yeah.
apparently, yes, it is.
So I watched the first episode,
Okay,
and I have to admit it was really good.
okay,
I really got into it.
wow.
Now, this isn't the type of show that I would watch normally. Just
Okay.
like when everybody was really big into intervention on
Oh
A&E.
yeah, that was hard to watch.
I never watched it.
Yeah,
Because for me, that's just like I did that all day.
yeah.
I don't want to go
Go
home
do
and watch.
that
Like
again.
that'd be like an accountant who does accounting work and then
Yeah.
goes home and watches a reality show
Yeah.
about accounting.
Or like a chef who comes home and watches Food Network.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
It's
Like,
just-
I want to watch tennis.
I want to get away from it.
Yeah, something else.
So this is outside my wheelhouse of stuff I would typically watch.
Okay.
Okay. But it's really good. I would recommend.
So what's the premise of the show? I've never
Okay.
seen this thing.
So the premise of the show is it's based in Massachusetts. It is-
Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Also,
right?
Google Germans trying to say Massachusetts. It is a
You know
gift.
what? Forget everything I was going to say.
Let's do that.
Just do that.
Let's just do that. It is a gift.
Yeah. So it's about a recovery high school
Okay.
in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
So
We have one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we actually had the first in the nation. I think.
Really?
I believe so. It was,
Oh, wow.
If it wasn't, no, I think it may have been the second. I think the first was in Texas.
Okay. Well, that's a great idea. A
Right.
recovery high school is for teenagers that are drug addicted and keep getting in trouble. And instead of just sending them to jail or sending them to an opportunity school for their behavior problems, you're recognizing that the primary thing they're struggling with is addiction. And so they create a school where they can learn with other people. And the big focus of the curriculum and the programming is there's therapists there's people in recovery. They're helping these kids beat their addiction while they're
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. A recovery high school is an amazing
Great idea.
concept.
Yes.
It's
great idea.
wonderful. And
Yeah.
we should have been doing that so long ago. Because
Not
and it's-
us. We can't even start a clothing store.
We can't.
Yeah, I don't trust us to do anything.
Somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yes, I just want to support that.
Yes. And I actually was involved in, kind of ancillarily involved in the recovery high school in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Because at the time, I was the executive director of the
Oh, that's right.
adolescent treatment program.
That's right.
That I was
So,
running.
yeah, they wanted your
And-
opinion on that.
Right. And so we were kind of working with them on getting that created.
Okay.
At the time, we were looking at actually providing the therapy for that,
Oh,
that location.
wow, okay.
Of course, that whole thing fell apart when the organization I was working for fell
Yeah,
apart.
that did not work out.
Yeah, but
But the school exists,
the school exists.
and so the show
It's
is
doing
about
well.
one in Massachusetts.
Correct.
Massachusetts.
And it's the thing that I really like about it is the whole concept of it is really important because treating addiction with adolescents has always been very difficult, and it's
Okay.
different than treating it with adults.
Yes. Oh, God.
There's way more challenges that come up. Number
Yes.
one, for a lot of kids, they haven't had enough time in their addiction to experience the full range of consequences.
Right. There are very few negative
Right.
consequences.
How to start with. However, you would be surprised by age, 16, 17, 18, if they've been doing this even by 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the stuff that they have gone through as kids.
Oh, yeah.
That I, as an adult, would think like, there's no way I could go through something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It's
It
incredibly
definitely
difficult.
accelerates misery.
Right. And then when you're working on that or doing something like that, addressing that in a regular school, it becomes punitive because that's how a regular school typically functions.
Right.
Your behavior's out of line, there's some sort of punitive consequence.
Okay.
So the recovery high school takes a different approach. really kind of looking at this as a disorder,
Yes.
just as we would treat any other medical condition.
right.
And it shouldn't be punitive. It should be treatment based. It
Yeah.
should be focused on recovery.
Right.
It should be focused on addressing this as an epidemic, as a disorder, a clinical disorder.
So
a
they're
medical
bringing
condition.
that kind of rehab mentality.
Yeah.
Things like motivational interviewing,
Yeah.
buy-in, and then steps, and
So
trying
they've-
to help them go the long way with it.
Right, and a lot of
Cool.
the teachers have experience, are in recovery themselves,
Oh,
or
that's
have
great.
experience with addiction. They've got access to counselors all the time.
Huh. So the
But-
show did a good job of dignifying this. It
yeah,
didn't just turn it into
absolutely.
this
No.
spectacle.
No, it wasn't. And for a reality TV show, I always worry about stuff
Yeah,
like that.
that's always
Because you're always looking for something dramatic and trying to
right.
make things.
Well, when I watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I often
on.
think to myself, this is probably not what it would be like if the cameras weren't there.
Right. So anyway, so we got this
Yeah.
Recovery High School.
Yeah, so it's
And,
different than Keeping Up with the
it's a
Kardashians.
Little,
A little.
I've never seen Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Oh, you are missing out, my
So,
man.
yeah.
Well, that show's
No
coming
one-
to an end.
No one believes that.
yeah, but where'd you get that T-shirt, though? Oh, this? Oh, this was a
this, yeah.
gift. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, their model is brilliant. So I mean, they create a safe space for all the kids, and it's not, like I said, it's not punishment based. They're treating it like a disorder. And the other thing is they're really good at explaining that this isn't a personality flaw. This
Right.
isn't just bad behavior. This is a condition, right? This is a medical condition that we're dealing with.
I like that.
And they do a really good job at displaying that.
That's great.
And it was hard for me to watch in the sense because it really took me back to my job when I was working with the teens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different experience. I've worked with both populations, adults and teenagers are just different.
Oh God, yeah,
And-
they are. It's hard. It's
It's
for
very
me, it's
hard.
very difficult.
It's very hard
Yeah.
because you like these kids.
Yeah.
They've got great personalities. You want to see them succeed. And then when you see all the stuff that they're dealing with,
yeah,
it's really hard to watch that.
yeah.
And you can tell that the staff is really involved on a personal level
Good.
with each one of these kids. There was, in the very first episode, one of the kids goes missing
Mm.
and is missing for like a week or
Oh
something.
my God.
And you can see how it affects each of the staff.
Oh geez.
And it really took me back to when I was running that other program because one of our kids went missing
Oh.
and she was missing for like 2 months. And it was really difficult because when you leave work, you don't just turn that off.
Yeah.
Whenever I was driving around Las
You're
Vegas,
looking,
I'm
yeah.
looking.
Right.
And I wasn't like, I didn't go out to look for her.
Right.
But if
You're
I'm
just
going to the
keeping your
grocery-
eyes open.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if I go to the grocery store, I'm looking around.
Yeah.
I remember Laura and I
Oh.
went to First Friday and I spent most of the time at First Friday just looking around.
Yeah.
Looking all over at all the different people, seeing if she happened to be there, and then you go, any place you go, if you're driving down a side street, you look down the side street,
Yeah.
you look in alleyways, you look all over, and you
in
just,
case.
you just don't turn that off.
Oh.
and
gosh.
that's something that I think is different with teenagers than with adults.
But as a therapist, that's so hard. I think
Yeah.
to like, because the boundary that you need to have with your patient is already so important, right?
Mhm.
And it's not just important for professionalism or ethics or for you as a clinician. It's important for their healing. They have to have the sense of like, I'm not going to do this for you. I can't care about this more than you. You have to own what this is, and you have to take it seriously. And that's what's always been so hard about working with teenagers is because oftentimes they're in pre-contemplation about how bad this problem is.
Yeah.
They almost never believe that this is significant. When you're talking to an adult they've hit the end of their rope, and a lot of times they're like, please save me. I am hiring you to save me. I am listening to you.
Yeah.
And if I walk away from you, you don't have to lose any sleep. You don't have to go, oh my God, what's going to happen to John? Like, no, John walked away. John's a grown man. John's
Yep.
going to go, and I don't lose sleep over that. I focus on the guys that are still in the program. With a teenager, that is terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
I would even bet
Chills.
that, because you say you didn't go out purposely to look for this kid. I would bet though that you were going out more than you normally
Yes.
would have gone out.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Because you were like, well, I mean, I guess I could go. I could go to 7-Eleven and get this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while I'm at 7-Eleven,
Well,
maybe I'll see this kid.
And
Right.
Nick was running
Yeah.
an outpatient clinic at the time. So
Yeah.
your kid
we
was
were-
living at home and then disappeared from their own home.
Yes.
If
And
in this
was-
show, is this an inpatient?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's and that's the thing. Like it's set up very similar to what we were doing.
Oh, wow.
Except this is more
It's
more
a
of an
school.
education focus.
Right.
But we were doing partial hospitalization.
Yeah.
So that's like a day treatment program.
All day.
So our kids would arrive at like 8:30 and they would leave at 5.
Which a recovery
right?
school. So the kids don't live at the school?
They don't.
Okay.
No, so
but they
they
go
go
there all
home.
day.
Yeah.
And a big part of the curriculum
And-
is
And
staying
they're
sober.
also very open about
it's so
like
hard.
about asking the kids, hey, did you use this weekend?
Wow.
Were you able to stay sober over the weekend? Were you able to stay clean and all that stuff?
Yeah.
And when they don't, they're very good at, okay, well let's talk about that, let's address it, but not punish it.
Right.
Because the other thing that's really
Wanna work
important, the thing that I think is most important in working with teenagers is you have to understand that you're dealing with a chronically relapsing condition.
Yes. Yeah.
These kids are going to relapse.
It's so hard to work with teenagers.
I know, and the
And
best
kids
thing
already don't have the best impulse control.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
And-
they're almost always going through a hard time. Like, they didn't just pick up drugs, most of them, because they were like, this is fun. Let's do this
Right.
on a sleepover. Like, no, they a lot of times they found drugs because their lives are in shambles.
they're treating trauma
They're treating trauma.
Trauma
And they're like
or-
16.
or
you know?
co-occurring mental
Oh,
health,
it's so hard.
co-occurring mental health disorders. And the thing that they do really well at this recovery high school is the same thing that we really tried focusing on when we were running our program. Our goal wasn't complete sobriety. Our goal was establishing a positive relationship.
Okay.
Because if you have a kid that is going to relapse, and it's a chronically relapsing condition, they're
Sure.
going to.
Right.
The most dangerous time is the time between when they relapse
Oh, yeah.
and when they actually reach out for help.
Right.
The longer that time period is, the more lethal the situation
So you're
is,
trying to build
right?
a relationship that
Exactly.
come back to you
Exactly.
without judgment.
Yes.
That way you can
So
minimize
when-
their risk.
Exactly. So
Okay.
when something happens, they feel comfortable coming back.
Yeah.
And that actually happens in the show. In the very first episode, the kid that goes missing, when he finally shows up, he shows up at school.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't show up at home first.
Right, because
He
that's
shows
where his
up at
support
home,
is.
at school.
He
because
trusts the school.
Yes, because he's got a good relationship with all the staff there.
Oh, wow.
He feels it's a safe place, so that's where he goes back to.
Okay.
So overall, if
Good
you
show.
haven't seen it, I recommend it. If you're into shows like that, it will definitely pull in the heartstrings
Oh,
quite a
see,
bit.
I can't do that.
It's tough to watch at times.
I can't do it. So
But the other thing too, what you were talking about, that sometimes the kids, they haven't hit rock bottom enough.
yeah.
There are other examples of that too, which is kind of the opposite, where they do have some terrible consequences that have
yeah.
happened. But I think the thing that's different sometimes with the adolescents than the adults is I think sometimes the adults have a little bit more hope.
Mm,
Like they're just slightly more optimistic. Like,
right.
okay,
They've
I
lived
can
long
do
enough.
this,
Yeah.
but I can pull this back together, or I can
Right.
get it together enough where I can have a family or hold down my job.
Right.
Whereas a lot of the kids, you'll see, they get to a point where they just like, no, I'm probably going to die.
Yeah. Oh.
And to hear that from like a 16-year-old
Yeah.
is really difficult.
That's really tough. That's why, I mean, like when you think about adult addiction treatment, I obviously I prefer that, and not every clinician's different, right?
Yeah.
And Jim is just cut differently. But it's ironic because everybody always thinks that I'd be really good at teenage treatment. Because like, oh, you're really like enthusiastic, bubbly guy, and like, don't take yourself seriously and get along with teenagers pretty naturally. Yes, I think I can be pretty disarming, and like that's fine. But man, the strategies you need to deploy is
Yeah.
a very different briefcase of techniques
Yeah.
than I naturally reach for, and I like the mutual accountability of an adult. I
Yeah.
also like the resilience that they have baked in. I don't have to wonder, are they going to kill themselves tonight in this unpredictable way?
Yeah.
Because no, they've lived for 3 decades, and I have a lot of past data in their using history to see that they have resilience to get through bad days. When
Yes.
you're 16 and you've had like 12 months of bad data, like I don't know what you're capable
Right.
of. And you have non-developed, cortexes that are going to impair your judgment. I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And you're already a high risk, and so, it's just, oh man, like, and I can't do it. And probably because I have kids too. Like,
Oh,
I just
yeah.
like, I get jittery. I'm like, that's somebody's baby.
Yeah.
Like I can't let this happen. And then I overreact, which is not helpful. Like you've got to have a very steady hand in teenage drug and alcohol treatment.
And a big part of working with teenagers is actually working with the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest
It's
thing.
everything.
It is.
Yeah.
If you don't have the parents' involvement,
Yeah.
then it's really
I'll do it
tough.
on an outpatient level, a very outpatient level, like the once a week sessions, and I'm just maintenancing and being a navigator. Like if the kid is obviously regressing, relapsing, using more, I'll be that expert navigator to say, hey, I recommend this level of treatment. I'll do an ASAM and say, let's take them here, and I'll help the family navigate.
Yeah.
But like, I don't want to run.
Right.
an
No, because you're
outpatient program.
really you're treating both. You can't treat the
Yes.
kid without treating the parents.
Yeah, no,
And
it's just too much.
You have to have everybody on the same page.
So
It's
16 in recovery is what the
16
show's
and
called.
recovering.
Recovering.
Yep.
On MTV,
MTV.
which is still a channel.
Yeah.
Exists.
It's
Still-
great.
Still there.
So do they show this in between the music videos, or is it maybe before the music videos?
Oh, Jim, I'm sorry. You're going to want to sit down. I have something I have to tell you.
What?
There's no more music on MTV.
Is it on VH1 now? Do I go to VH1 to watch the pop-up video?
Don't know.
I used to
oh,
like the
I do
pop-up
miss
video.
pop-up
Pop-up
video.
video was fantastic. Pop-up video. Yeah, that was great. I used to love pop-up video.
You know what sucks? I'm dyslexic, so it was
You
really
are?
hard for. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
I've never actually been tested. I'm pretty
If
sure.
life gives you melons, you might be dyslexic.
That's good. But yeah, it was always hard for me to watch pop-up video because I just get distracted.
you can't read the words
I
that
try to
fast.
read the whole thing at once instead of reading a sentence. I try to
Okay.
read chunks.
Oh, yeah.
And I just
It doesn't work.
I'm not good at that.
Well, speaking of media, before we move on, top of the show, we should probably plug that this weekend you were on Instagram, which
was.
apparently has video.
Yeah.
I didn't know this, and then I figured it out.
Yeah,
There's
so,
live video on Instagram. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, there's a live. Yeah, so I was on the OK Days.
The OK
Instagram.
Days. Yeah.
Eden
Eden.
from that show.
That was nice.
And so she interviewed me
About us.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a lot of fun. The downside is that I had it on my phone, but I couldn't see myself.
Oh.
And this obviously being the first time I've done an Instagram like live show, I wasn't sure how
Shoved the
close
camera right
or
up your nose.
far to see. So if you want to know if my pores are clean, watch this because you get a really good look.
Well, I texted you right afterward, and I was like, hey, it was really great. And then I was like, I really liked the power move that you did in the background. Because you had a completed Rubik's Cube sitting on your back shelf, and I was like, yeah, well done, buddy.
I forgot that
that
that's
communicates
there.
power right there.
I had no idea
Yep.
that was even there.
Yep. When you're in that Instagram Live and somebody's like, you know what? Who is this guy? It's like, oh, you see that completed Rubik's Cube? All right.
Yeah, that's who this guy
That's
is.
who. You want to know who I
Yeah.
am? That's who I am.
You want to know who I am? I'm the guy that looked up on YouTube how to solve a Rubik's Cube.
You can look it up.
Yeah, dude.
Oh.
I could teach a monkey to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Challenge accepted.
If you've got, bet you couldn't.
Bring in the monkey. Bring in the monkey.
The monkey is also named Jim.
He
Really?
probably-
Coincidental.
Totally coincidental. So yeah, it was a good show. It was fun.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And if you are not following that channel and you're following us, I feel like we're friends. I feel like I can say this and I can say,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, that's right. Get out
because
there.
it's a really cool concept. What she does is every Friday she does like an Instagram live thing.
Yeah.
And she
interviews somebody.
people.
It's pro mental health.
And yeah, it's all mental health and all. It's called the OK Days, and it's all focusing on making days okay.
I still
and making
don't
them more
understand how Instagram works.
I don't either.
Almost at all.
Yeah.
But I liked that, and I was just like blown away that like it was like a Zoom call, but it was like live. It was really cool. Like I was like, I can't believe you could just do that. Like Instagram is amazing. So that's pretty cool. I also learned how to post stories recently.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, those are the ones that don't stay. That they just show up for a little while.
Yeah.
I figured that one out.
Oh, well, you should do that on ours.
I did
you
to
did?
get to people to go to votejim.net.
Oh God, of course you did.
Yes.
Why else would you use it?
Go to votejim.net. Vote for me for best of Las Vegas every day, every device. Hooray! We're going to take a break.
Do check that out. Do check that out because there's a
VoteGym.net?
lot of great organizations that are running against.
No. Go to VoteGym.net.
Yeah,
vote for
there's
Therapy.Vegas.
Some really good organizations.
If you'd like to... wait, where are we at? Oh, we're going to take a break.
We are going to take a break.
We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to discuss eating problems. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Ellie O'Dare. And in honor of Ellie, this week's commercial game, our quiz show, is
Dun, 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 dun.
Mick reads the lyrics.
Oh, geez.
Surge. 90s Pop Hits Edition.
Okay.
So these are songs.
We got to guess the song.
I'll read the lyrics. I need the song, and I need the artist.
Oh, I'm not getting it.
Okay? No, you're not.
I won't get the song.
Jacob will get it.
He might.
I know he's a 90s
What, can
guy.
you give us the genre?
90s. 90s
90s
pop
is
hits.
not a genre.
90s pop hits. Okay. All right, here it is.
If you want to be my lover,
No,
you gotta get with my
I
friends.
did think about that one, but I didn't actually do it. Here it is. I thought I saw a man brought to life. He was warm. He came around. He was dignified.
Oh, shit. I
He
know
showed
it.
me what it was to cry.
Oh.
Well, you couldn't be that man I adored. You don't seem to know or seem to care what your heart is for.
Shit. I know it.
But I don't know him anymore.
I know it. It's not Sarah McLachlan, right?
No, it's not.
Okay. Oh, God. I can sing it to you.
Go ahead.
He was warm. He was dignified.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. Show me what it was to cry. I need
If you would like to
anymore.
join Ellie O'Dare and make the show
How'd you
possible,
walk
go
out
to
that door? What's
patreon.com/therapy
going on?
and sign up. Again, that's
Torn.
patreon.com.
It's called Torn.
It is.
Yay!
Bye.
Nothing's right
By
on
who?
Torn.
Bye.
You're a little late. I'm
By
already
who?
torn.
Who's
By
that?
who?
Sarah McLachlan.
Corn.
No.
It was
Corn.
Torn by corn.
Torn
That
by
was
Torn.
right. That was
It
right.
was
Marilyn
on-
Manson.
It
Final
was on
answer.
their MTV Unplugged.
That's
I
right.
think. Yeah.
Who was it?
It was Natalie Imbruglia.
Okay, I was never going to get that.
No?
But I'm really proud of myself that I got
You
the
did.
name of that song.
You did.
Thank you.
Good job.
Music memory. You know that song by Beyonce? I think it's called Empire State of Mind.
Uh-huh.
And I listened to this song over and over.
I think it might just be called Empire, but I'm
Whatever.
probably wrong.
I try to figure out what the hell she is saying. And this happens to me a lot, where I listen to songs and I am sure that I know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then when you look it up, you're like, oh God, I was way off. Like, I'm talking about the one that's like, in New
It is Empire State of Mind.
York. And here's what I hear. She
That's
goes,
not Beyonce. That's Alicia Keys.
oh, okay, that one. And so she goes, in New York, concrete jungle, wet dream tomato. And every time I hear
didn't know
it,
those were the lyrics?
concrete jungle, that feels right. But
Yeah.
wet dream doesn't feel
Wet
right.
Dream Tomato.
But
doesn't
might be
feel
we
right.
dream, concrete jungle, we dream. I don't know what the tomato is, but every time I hear it, I hear concrete
The
jungle,
tomato is
wet
death,
dream
Joe.
tomato.
The tomato is death.
Weren't you in a band called Wet Dream Tomatoes?
Yeah. People don't know about it, but
Yeah.
we had our day.
Yeah.
Played a couple good karaoke nights. So I really want to look up the lyrics to that song. But this happens to me a lot, where like I'll listen to songs and be like, what are they saying? And like
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident I know what it is, and then I do not know what it is.
Yeah, you should look it up. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah, I feel like I'm probably wrong on
Yeah.
the concrete jungle thing. So this letter is called Eating Problems, and it's from somebody that's calling themselves Sad in Seattle. I don't feel like people do this enough. You know, when they write into our show, I feel like they should do that. The formula of like, you know, sleepless in Seattle. Everybody should address themselves as if they are from Seattle, is what I'm going for here. I feel like that's relevant.
100%.
Dear Jim and Nick, I am mainly writing you just to simply get my pain on paper in an attempt to just come to terms with my life. Every day has become a challenge just to simply get out of bed. I'm also asking for any advice you gentlemen can provide for me moving forward. For the last several years, I have been suffering from psoriatic arthritis that has progressively worsened since my prognosis. It is mostly concentrated in my hands and feet, making it hard for me to be mobile. My rheumatologist has prescribed sulfasalazine, that feels right, methotrexate, and Flectra to manage the disease, which helped tremendously. But these drugs also take a toll on my energy levels. My weight is a major contributing factor to my ailments. My relation with food is a bit of a weird thing. In the process of eating, it has become self-hate. Due to my lethargy from weight and medications, I find the simple tasks of cooking become difficult. Most days, I spend all of my energy just to simply earn a living, and by the time I get home, I will spend the rest of the day immobile. I will always be eating quick meals that are not good for my health, and I find it very hard to stop eating. I find it very hard to find someone to talk to. I live a very solitary life, and it's hard to share anything with anyone. Every time I try to find a psychotherapist, I have a hard time trusting someone I don't know. And when I look through the list of doctors in my area, I feel that none of their specializations can help me. So I simply have become a self-hating hermit and don't know where to begin. Thanks, guys. Sad in Seattle.
Yeah, this one's hard.
That is tough. And the cycle thing, I think a
Yes.
lot of people relate to. It's a comedic attempt to make this point, but back in the day, there was that movie Austin Powers, and then there was Austin Powers 2, and in 2 or 3, I don't remember which one, there was a character introduced named Fat Bastard.
Yeah.
And Fat Bastard at one point deceives Austin Powers into letting his guard down by becoming very emotional and saying, "I'm unhappy because I eat, and I eat because I'm unhappy. It's a vicious cycle." And he starts crying, and it's like a very touching moment, and then he farts, and then he tries to kill Austin Powers, and it's this big comedic thing because he doesn't care. But I've always thought of that as like a really true statement. A lot of people are unhappy because they eat, and then eat because they're unhappy. And I kind of hear that in that letter, too.
Yeah. Weird way to go about
I got
addressing
there. I
that.
got there. Yeah, we took the scenic route, but I got
Yeah,
there. I got
okay.
to the point.
Yeah, I mean,
He literally could have covered everything you just said by going like, "Oh yeah, I get it."
yeah, yeah.
That's true,
Yeah.
isn't it?
That took up a lot of time on the podcast. for
Yeah,
very
got to
little
get that.
information.
Got to get those minutes in.
Yeah, okay, so there's a few things that we're kind of dealing with here. Okay, number one, we've
Physical
got
pain.
physical pain.
Yep.
We've got the side effects of the medication.
Yep.
We've got eating as a way to self-medicate,
Yes.
and then all of that resulting in lethargy
Lethargy,
and
Yeah.
disconnection from other people.
isolation, depression.
And you're right in the sense that all of this is very cyclical because then it feeds back onto itself, right?
Yes.
And he talks about how, the eating, I could make some meals, but because of all these other things, at the end
I
of
don't
the
have
day,
the energy to
I just
cook.
don't have energy to do it.
Yeah, and
you know?
I get that.
Yeah.
And you're spending
that's-
all your energy making a living. And you
Right.
come home and you're just like, I don't want to do any self-care. I just want to sit back and rest.
So this is one of those very difficult things where you've got all of these factors
Yeah.
feeding into each other. Something has to change. So you
Right.
kind of have to pick one thing. But here's the great thing about this. About the cyclical nature of this, the beneficial piece is that when you change one thing, it will likely change all the other things that follow,
Okay.
right? As opposed to having, 7 or 8 different problems that aren't connected to each other, where we have to address each individual problem.
Right.
The nice thing is about with this is you get to pick your access point,
Mm-hmm.
right? You get to pick the point in which you want to start.
Because they are all connected.
Yes.
And I think that's true. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say another thing, that one of the places that you and I used to work together
Oh, yeah.
had a pain clinic.
Yes. I was just thinking
And-
about that.
Yeah. And one of the things, I guess I could say his name.
Dr. Mel Pohl.
Yeah.
He wrote the book A Day Without Pain.
Right.
And Dr. Pohl, I think, was a pioneer in trying to think about the psychology and emotionality of physical pain.
Right.
And then how that in the clinic that we worked in was a drug and alcohol clinic, and it was specifically trying to disentangle pain reliever medications
Yes.
that often get thrown at people with arthritis and situations like that. Now they have a drug addiction.
Yeah.
Or it's affecting their ability to cope with life because these are psychiatric medications, even if they're just pain relievers.
Right. And one of the points that he made that I really liked is the cyclical nature of mobility,
Yeah.
specifically lack of mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he kind of used the example of if I injured my shoulder and it hurts to raise my arm up to here, which would be like 2 o'clock.
He's doing the
on a
Nazi
clock.
salute for everybody that
Oh,
can't
shit,
see right
I
now.
am.
Yeah, that's
I was-
okay. You do what you got to do,
I
man.
was off to the side. It wasn't in front of me. Okay, so on
the
a
Fuhrer will see.
on a on a clock, it's at like 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So it hurts to raise my arm up to here.
Mhm.
So then, what do I do in response? So in response, I only raise my shoulder up to here, about
Right.
2:30.
Okay.
Okay, so I continue to do that. Now it hurts to raise it here. So now what do? Now I only raise it up to here, 3
Right.
o'clock.
Keep going on.
You know, and then what I'm doing is because I'm limiting my mobility because of the pain,
Mhm.
I'm decreasing my mobility, and my pain increases because now it's spreading.
Right.
Right. So the idea, the concept then is to actually, doing physical exercise and pushing yourself to that point where you start to kind of experience the pain, then
Right.
you keep that mobility at, where it's at.
Yeah.
Right. And you can continue to do that. The point he was kind of making with all of this, hopefully I'm getting this right. The point that he was making is that exercise, stretching, doing something physical is not the enemy.
Right.
It's the solution. Right.
Yeah.
So you do your best not to limit mobility based off of your pain,
Yeah.
but making sure that you stay mobile.
You got to find that happy medium.
Yeah.
And I guess to the writer, for Seattle here, a couple of things that I love that you're talking about that I think so many people relate to. First, we do not talk enough in our society about the psychology and emotion of pain.
Mm-hmm.
In therapeutic land, we get a lot of patients who are diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And fibromyalgia is just this catch-all. It's almost the non-diagnosis diagnosis. It's whenever they can't figure out what's causing pain, the person is just suffering. And so at some point they stamp them with fibromyalgia, which people always feel very defeated by. And then they tell them, maybe you need to go see a therapist. And it's frustrating because I think a lot of patients in that kind of a situation will say, but my pain is physical. Why the hell do I need to talk about my feelings and talk to a shrink? Like, my pain is very physical. You can point to it. And I've actually tried to nudge people to appreciate that all pain, and this is something Dr. Pohl, our mentor, used to tell us, all pain is technically mental. And that's not to dismiss it. That's not to minimize it. He is factually describing something.
Not saying that there's not a physical cause.
Not to say that.
But,
Nope.
but pain is in the brain.
Pain is a sensor experience.
And what he also says too, that like, people will say, well, it's not legit, it's not real pain.
Real, yeah.
Right? People will say there's a difference between real pain and imaginary pain. And he said, no. All pain is real pain.
Yes. And he
Whether
would
it's-
also add to that emotional pain.
Exactly.
And that was one of the things that Dr. Pohl was such a pioneer in. And again, I'll plug his book, A Day Without Pain. There's also a workbook that goes along with it. And it's very much his own personal story of his own opioid addiction and his own physical pain that he had to go through in life. And how he overcame that using psychology and using good medicine. But in the story, and I think what a lot of people have to discover, is that emotional pain exacerbates physical pain because your body doesn't know the difference. Pain is just pain. And you could ask a whole bunch of people with depression and a whole bunch of people with anxiety and be like, is this just a mental thing? Or do you feel it? And they'll be like, no, I feel it. I feel.
Because everything you feel is mental.
It is mental. And so they're like, yeah, exactly. I physically feel I can't get out of bed. I do not have the energy. I hurt in a sense. There is a apathy, a lethargy. If you have anxiety like me, there's all these physical symptoms that go along with it. You feel in danger. You feel like you're struggling. You feel like you're in pain. And so like all of this is connected. So to the writer, I appreciate the opportunity you're bringing forward to discuss how all pain is real pain. Emotional pain is physical pain. Physical pain is emotional pain. These all touch each other. And how psychology or how psychologically damaging it can be to be in arthritis. Because when you lose that mobility and you're experiencing constant daily pain, especially in your extremities, your hands and your feet, which are your tools, you have to use these all day. And whenever you're feeling that pain, the anguish and the defeat and the discouragement is so real. And it becomes a huge contributing factor to something like depression. So I like that you have a rheumatologist. I want that person to be able to do their job. And I like that you're taking those meds. I like that you're following doctor's orders because hopefully their discipline can help relieve that. But as you already know, Seattle, there's more for you to be doing. And a big part of that is the mental health thing. Yeah. And I'm hearing the writer say, well, I'm looking at all these specializations and I'm not seeing somebody that really seems to target what I do. You're right. It's very hard to find somebody that specializes in chronic pain management and will advertise that as a therapist. Nick and I actually have done advanced work in chronic pain management because we happen to work with some experts that were doing that, and we ran a clinic that was involved in that. But I would say that any therapist that's working on depression with you and working on emotional anguish with you and pain with you is actually addressing some of the things connected to chronic pain. And I think it's actually all relevant.
Yeah. I mean, a way that I always like to look at it, too, I think I got this from Dr. Pohl, too, is kind of looking at almost kind of like an egg. If you imagine the egg where in the yolk part is kind of physical pain that you experience, and then the outer part then is emotional pain.
It's wrapped
that's
in
wrapped around the physical pain. So a lot of people think like, well, if I'm experiencing physical pain, why would I go into therapy? Because really what you're doing is you're making that circle smaller.
Yes.
Right? So you address that emotional pain, because what your brain feels as pain is the whole egg.
Right.
Not just the yolk, it's the whole thing.
Yes.
So if you can shrink that outer part, the emotional pain that goes along with it, then you can actually decrease the amount of pain, because then now all you're left with is the physical pain.
And it's still very meaningful.
Yeah.
So speaking of eggs, a big part of his writing is his relationship to food. And he's saying, I have a really unhealthy relationship to food. The cycle, which I was trying to come up with a movie quote to help with. But yeah, the cycle of I'm eating, and my negative eating and my weight is emotionally and physically bad, right? You just categorize all that as bad. It hurts me emotionally. It hurts me physically. It detracts from my mobility. It makes me more apathetic. And yet, part of why I'm eating poorly is because I don't have good energy and that mental like oomph to get up to the kitchen and to make something decent. So I just grab a cheeseburger on the way home. And then I'm self-medicating with the food. And I appreciate that too, Ryder, because, on this show, we've discussed, I think, a lot about how self-medicating with food is so common. Like I relate to it. So many humans relate to it. So many of us have done that. And then it is so frustrating because the food physically affects you.
Yeah.
It affects you in every possible way. Not just, you're undernourished, but like it's actually changing your psychology in so many ways and detracting from your energy and your endorphins and your hormones, and all these things are being negatively affected, but then it feeds itself. Like then you go back to it again because you need that little bit of relief. It is very much like a drug addiction in a lot of ways. Yeah. We have a very important letter that came to us and was attached to a 1-star review that a listener was illuminating that Nick and I have a lot to learn when it comes to eating disorders and describing new and more advanced theories, which is fine. I'm open to that feedback. We'll talk about it later. But I just want to say in this case, it sounds like that cycle is very true.
Right. So, I mean, in this case, there's a couple different ways that maybe you could kind of start a process of change.
Yeah.
And here's what I would do too, listeners. Don't beat yourself up over any of this.
Right.
I mean, you're doing what you can with the hand that you're dealt. And it's very difficult. I would challenge anybody to be dealt that hand and be doing a better job.
Right. Good point.
So this isn't anything to be upset about or to shame yourself over or to feel bad about. Let's just focus on where we go from here.
Yes.
Right. So let's just focus on a couple really small things that maybe you could implement right now, and just really tiny things. Like even if it's, if the eating is a problem, if you start really small with, I'm going to do, 1 meal a week, I'm just going to prep myself, and just start there. And then just make that part of your normal routine. And then after you've established that for a while, then maybe let's do, if you feel like you can do 2 meals, then do that, but start really small. And then maybe you get to a point in a few months where you're meal prepping, spending all your energy on a Sunday prepping for the rest of the week, so that when you get home after work, then you don't have to feel like you need to get something quick and easy because you already have something quick.
There's something there.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, I think we have to work up to that. It's fine taking baby steps. No, I think the other thing too is with psychotherapy, don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Right. If you can't find a therapist that specializes in this exact thing, like Jim said, that's fine. Because they don't have to specialize in this exact thing. You just need to focus on the emotional part.
Yeah. Yeah, Ryder. And that's going to be the nudge that I ultimately give you. You start your letter by saying, I just need to put my pain on paper. And so I'm writing to a podcast with therapists in it that I've listened to because I just know that is a healthy action for me to take today. And I just want to highlight that and hand it back to you and say, exactly. You are aware that writing this simple letter was a very important thing for you to do. It was healthy for you to do. It was somewhat relieving for you to do. Hearing our feedback is influencing you and hopefully giving you something. I would like you to partner with a therapist and do some of that. And I think too often we think, oh, I'm not going to meet with a therapist. A therapist is not a contractor. You don't, walk a therapist into your house and go, I want shelves there and I want it done by noon. They are a healthcare provider. They are partnering with you through your illness. And sometimes your job is to describe what you're going through and to explore that with them. And I don't want you to think that that's not action. That is action.
Oh, yeah.
That is productive. It is healthy. Languaging your pain is a way of relieving your pain. Talking about it is important.
The other thing that I was thinking that might be beneficial, I don't know if you'd be open to this or not, but that we're also talking about socialization, and
I don't think socialism matters here. I don't know why you have to politicize it. God.
It's democratic socialism, Jim. It's different.
All right, yeah. That's fine.
No, but
whatever works in Sweden.
Talking about living a very solitary life, if you do find a therapist, maybe also take a look at some kind of self-help group.
Yeah.
Because I think that's kind of it's a good way to address both pieces of that. Because meeting with a therapist can be very useful. It can be very helpful to get that insight from a professional. Having a group around can be just as impactful, sometimes more impactful.
It's
because
tough
then you
because
get to
I don't see what group he goes to, though.
Well, I think any kind of mental health group dealing with depression.
Like NAMI. Yeah, so go to the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
NAMI would be a good one.
Yeah, and they're going to have online meeting groups with people that identify with various things. Their support groups, you would be welcome in the depression group, I think.
Yeah, and then just being able to have a conversation and meet some new people. And that may be difficult for a lot of folks, to kind of open up. But, you can go to a lot of these groups and you don't have to talk the first time.
True.
And so you can just kind of sit and listen and just be a part of it and slowly get to meet some new people. I think that would be beneficial too.
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for a while. The only way to break a cycle is to do something different. It doesn't have to be huge. If you've heard a solution-focused episode, you know that Nick and I are big believers that little change catalyzes big change, and so all we want is a small change. That could be 1 hour of your week, Seattle. That could be a 1 hour change out of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It could be 1 hour that you spend with a therapist.
Yep.
I'd really think that would be meaningful change.
Yeah.
Even if you're like, God, I just complained for an hour. That's fine.
Yeah,
Start
absolutely. I mean, just imagine it just like instead of writing us, instead of it's the same thing. Like,
you're discussing.
You're just getting stuff off your chest.
That's right.
Even if they don't say anything.
Yeah. And that's not a minimal thing. And
right.
It's one of the things that annoys me, I think, and I get defensive as a therapist. Some people are like, well, I want to talk to a therapist, but I figured I could just, I don't have to pay somebody to unload my burdens and just complain for an hour. So why would I go pay somebody to do that? And okay, yeah, I appreciate that you're minimizing everything I do to the same thing you have with your buddy at the bar.
That's not minimizing everything you do. I can minimize everything you do.
You can't even change the resolution on a picture, Tim. That person is in no way getting to the heart of the issue. But no, a lot of people minimize this as just venting, just, blah. And I appreciate that you think it's that simple, but there is so much that's happening.
Yeah.
And, venting is A, healthy, and B, it turns into more. It starts there.
Yes.
But whenever you can take out your pain and hand it to another person, and that person holds it with both hands and looks directly into it and understands it, something happens inside of you to just see the injury in another person's eyes, for have them getting it. And then that opens up the door to change.
Yeah.
So Seattle, be optimistic that this can get better. I see you right on the edge, willing to take the next step, a little bit discouraged, not seeing anything screaming as the right answer to you. Take that first step, though, man. That would, or ma'am, or they, but do something different, okay? Do something new.
Yeah, and we're with you. Yeah, let us write back. Let us know how it's going. We definitely support every step you want to take. So if there's anything we can do to help, we're happy to do that.
We're with you.
Good for you for writing in. I think that was a good first step too.
Yeah.
I mean, even do not have your therapist hang a shelf in your house.
No. Oh God. Well, Nick probably could.
I think I could.
I can't get them straight.
Yeah.
Never. never straight. That bubble thing does jack. That
A
never
level?
gets it. Yes, the bubble,
Bubble
thing
thing?
sucks. I might have a broken bubble thing, but it sucks.
I bet it's fine.
No, it never
yeah.
works.
I don't know how a bubble can break. I don't know if a bubble just doesn't work
Something's
anymore.
wrong.
I don't
Something's
know.
wrong.
Yeah.
Also, quick story about Mel Pohl. So whenever we first, you had already worked there for a little while, and then I came and worked there, and you were in different divisions, so you didn't
Yeah.
have to see Mel a lot in the beginning. And then I started going there, and I was seeing him every single clinical staffing.
Yeah.
And I was in that mental state of being like, I'm the new guy. I want to stand out. It was a very competitive environment, and I really wanted to like seem competent. And I had that like new professional, like new car smell where it's like I didn't know what I was doing yet, but I really wanted to seem like I knew what I was doing. And so like during several staffings, I had like tried to have something to say, and it just so happened that each time it really upset him. And he was really vocal about it, and like it was bad.
So he will turn down a request to be on the show.
Oh yeah, he does not like me to this day, and it's
I can't
really
imagine.
I don't know why, but it's really funny because like I saw some of the other like senior management ribbing him a little bit, and they kind of had a good rapport, and I was like, oh, okay, he's one of those guys. Like you just push him a little bit, and then he goes with it, you know, like so I was thinking, let me do that. So then he comes up with he says something in a clinical staffing
You
with
have
the whole
so
staff there.
many bad ideas.
So I go ahead and take a shot at him, and I get the whole room laughing at his expense. And that was the death knell of my relationship with this man. He hated me. He wouldn't even say hi to me. Like when we walked by. So I was so this is I was brand new in the field at the time, and I was so worried that this guy didn't like me because I have this pathological need to be liked. I went and bought him a gift. I bought him a pen.
to make it more awkward.
Yes, I bought him a pen, and I got it engraved with his name on it. And I gave it to him as a gift, and I was like, hey, I'm just so grateful to be on your team and just so excited to learn from you, and I wanted to get you this. And he was just so annoyed with me. He didn't even open it. He just like put it on his desk. He's like, thanks, Jim. Was that all? And I was like, why won't you love me? It's really funny because to this day, I mean, we're under lockdown, so it's been a while since I've seen him out in the field. But every once in a while, I'll see him at like a conference or something. This guy won't even make eye contact with me. And I'm like, dude, it's been like a decade. Like, we're friends. And no.
No, you're not.
No,
We are not friends.
No.
You don't want to talk to me.
You are
I still
definitely
like
not
him, though.
friends.
God, I wish he would just love me. Dr. Mel Pohl, Pohl, and his book is called A Day Without Pain. And he's got several now, but award-winning book. So
So you're saying that all the THERAPODs should tweet at him?
Oh,
Yeah.
do
do
not.
not
tell
do
him-
that.
do
He's
not
on Twitter.
like
Yeah,
Jim.
he is on Twitter. He would not like you to do that.
If that happens, I'll tell you right now, we will stop the show and I will delete all evidence that we ever had this podcast.
that we ever existed.
Yeah.
I do not want him to. I do not want to bother him. He's a real person. He's really important. He already doesn't like me. Oh, God. Anyway, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we are going to talk about whether or not mental health is contagious. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's next THERAPRODUCER sponsor is Judy Schneider, continuing with our theme of 90s pop hits lyrics.
I really like this game, by the way.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm doing it in the next show, too.
Oh, good.
But it's not 90s pop. All right, anyway.
It's hip-hop. I'll
It's
nail it.
20s pop.
Oh, shit.
It's all
Okay.
It's all prohibition pop.
Here we go. Are you ready? Okay. Don't leave me all in this pain. Don't leave me out in the rain. Come back and bring back my smile. Come and take these tears away. I need your arms to hold me now. The nights are so unkind. Bring back these nights when I had you beside me.
Unbreak
no
my
idea.
heart.
Oh, there it is.
Say you love me again. Undo the hurt you caused when you walked at the door and walked out of my life.
Who sings it?
Uncry these tears.
Who sings it?
I've cried so many nights.
Artist.
Unbreak my heart.
Artist.
See,
Whitney Houston.
No.
Gloria
If you'd like to
Estefan.
join Ellie O'Dare and make the show possible, go to
Boys to Men.
patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's
Wayne Newton.
patreon.com/therapy.
Garth Brooks.
No,
It's a woman.
it is a woman.
Celine Dion.
No.
Woman who sings Unbreak My Heart. Unbreak my... Damn.
I'll give you a first name, and you're still not going to get it.
All right, go for it.
Tony
Robbins.
No.
That's it.
Tony Robbins sang that song. Tony Tiger. Tony Esta. Isn't it Esta something?
No.
Yes,
Tony
it's definitely
Braxton.
Braxton.
Tony Esteban.
Is it Tony
Tony
Braxton?
Esteban.
Is it Tony Braxton?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, did you just say Tony Braxton?
Yes, I did. That's
Is
how
why it
that
popped
name
into
popped
my head?
into your head.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know where these thoughts come from. They're not labeled.
It's like a name was just said into my earphones.
Guys, it just came to me. I think it just happened. Contagious mental health. Hey guys, I came across this video today on YouTube that was about this forensic psychiatrist, Dr. Bandy Lee. Oh, we don't have enough time.
We got time.
We're gonna have to go long on this episode. We don't got enough time. I need to tear into this for a while. Oh God, I'm just seeing her name. I just have this anger in my heart.
Okay, get through the letter. You can do this.
All right. I came across this YouTube video today by forensic psychiatrist Dr. Bandy Lee, who is the author of The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump and is the president of the World Health Coalition, make-believe organization, by the way. In this video I've attached, he is speaking about how Dr. Bandy Lee believes that Trump has a mental illness and that it has been transmitted to his supporters.
I hate these things.
Dr. Bandy Lee believes that mental illness can be contagious in some situations. She is using our political and social situation as an example. And I can see why she would think that. With conspiracies and chaos, not only in the current administration, but also in society, you start to wonder, what the hell is going on? I wanted your opinion on this because I've not ever heard of a mental illness being contagious. That sounds like something that was said decades ago when mental health was kind of taboo and people were afraid they could catch schizophrenia or something. I know that's not what she's saying, but can this be dangerous to make these kinds of statements?
Yes! I told you this wouldn't take
long. No, it's not. I listened to the episode.
Asked and answered.
I listened to the episode you did with the host of the Opening Arguments podcast about not wanting to label Trump with a mental illness.
Because it's libel.
Because it's libel. Even though many people think he is a narcissist. I don't feel like that is something that is contagious, and it seems ridiculous that you could catch narcissism by just being a supporter of Trump.
Sure does.
Sorry for the long email. Look forward to hearing your perspective. Here's the YouTube link. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
You want me to answer this?
Go for it. Just get him.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. As far as I know, which ain't much, but as far as this audio guy knows.
What
And
they
life
teach
coach?
you in life coaching school.
Put down the
Mental
cookie, Nick.
illness
Stop eating. We're on podcast time.
Is not transmissible. That being said,
Yes.
some would call Donald Trump an asshole.
Yeah.
And I would say that being an asshole can certainly rub off on other people.
Sure.
So if you're going to say that, Donald Trump is an asshole, and some of his supporters that has rubbed off on them and they are assholes as well.
There you
I'm
go.
not saying that, but if you wanted to say that, I would say fine.
Yeah,
That's
possible.
That's possible. Beyond that, shut up.
Shut up. Oh, God.
Let her done.
Oh, this woman, Dr. Bandy X Lee. I should ask her to be on the podcast.
I'll ask her to be on the podcast. Hey, you want to be on the podcast?
I don't know that she can hear you, Jacob. You gotta probably.
I actually have her zoomed in.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, wow, that was quick. Oh, Dr. Lee. All right. Dr. Bandy X Lee wrote a book, or edited a book, called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, and it's specifically a group of psychiatrists explain why the president is mentally ill. This was years ago that she did this, and then has gone around on TV and radio and anywhere she can get out there, did the circuit. And she's the one that every time Donald Trump says something, they pull her in, and she says, "Hi, I'm a forensic psychiatrist and a social worker, and she has a master's of divinity. So if I ever do get to debate her, I'm going to refer to her as Reverend the entire time. I am never going to acknowledge her medical doctorate. I'm just going to sit there and be like, what Reverend Lee is saying." That is my entire game plan.
What the good Reverend means.
What Her Holiness Dr. Lee is trying to say. So she has this point that she's saying, okay, and then this actually opens up a whole new conversation about this thing called the Goldwater Rule, which we've talked about. You can go through our archives, go to podtherapy.net, search in the search bar Goldwater, and you can see an entire discussion I have with a lawyer, host of a show called Opening Arguments, and he's very, very progressive, and he believes that Trump has a mental illness, and he was arguing that that should be something we as the behavioral health community should talk about. And he and I had a very good debate, which I won. And that's not just my opinion. The show wrapped with him saying, I agree with you now, Jim. Like, I see why that's too dangerous to do. Like, you shouldn't be pulled into this. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is a political animal. All of this is politics. That's not to minimize it. That's to describe it. This is not medical. This is political. That's fine. Dr. Lee believes that we as behavioral health people have a duty to warn. And she really enjoys exaggerating that duty to the point where anytime anybody anywhere has any social influence or doesn't like other people, we are supposed to stand up and call them names and be like, okay, they have a mental illness, don't let them hold office, which is wrong on so many levels.
Yeah. Okay, so then Lincoln would have been gone.
Yeah, don't have Lincoln.
Right.
Because anybody who has a mental illness is automatically disqualified.
Right.
Like, that's not cool.
A fine thing to say about someone that you've never met
Yeah.
and only seen on television.
Yeah, right. Huge conclusions. Oh, and so I went through Lee's Twitter recently because something came up and made me look at it. Oh, she's gotten to a whole new level now. And I'm just like horrified. Like, there's a principled debate to be had among mental health clinicians about where the line is, because there is such thing as a duty to warn. That is a real thing, but it's very carefully managed.
Yes,
Whenever you remove the rights of somebody and sequester them from society, you're invoking the one power mental health clinicians have, which supersedes the entire judicial system and habeas corpus. And we give you that power to protect our society from a murderer. And that's pretty much it. And like anything less than that, you don't get to use your power to like duty to warn your way out of HIPAA and duty to warn your way out of like actual diagnosis. But now she's on Twitter and she's saying Donald Trump murdered, capital M, homicide, all the people who died of corona. He intended for them to die. Not accidental, not negligence, not he's bad at being president. He woke up and said, I want them to die.
She said this on a public,
on her Twitter. Oh, yeah.
thing.
Oh, she's on interviews talking about it now. And she's like, see, he is a murderer. We tried to warn you that he was going to do violence. This is him doing violence.
It is known that I am not a Donald Trump fan.
Yes.
I'm
you're going
not-
to say
Even though you're on his
what
mailing list.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I am on his mailing list, but I'm not a Donald Trump fan. If I were Donald Trump, I would sue her for everything that she might ever get for making that statement.
Yeah.
Donald Trump
Because
would
it
never
is-
sue anybody.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, he's not a litigious person.
Oh, I just got a letter.
I just got a cease and desist.
We're being sued.
How did they even do that? We haven't even published this.
It is. I mean, again, not a lawyer.
Not a lawyer.
Same way I'm not a therapist. I'm
Not
not
a
a lawyer.
therapist.
But it seems to me that it is demonstrable how that statement could injure his career.
Yeah.
Not just his reputation, but also his career, his ability to make a living.
And you're also alleging a crime.
Right.
Certainly.
You need to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Like, even though he's a political aspect, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, you're alleging a crime, you're alleging mental illness, and like,
You're alleging an atrocity.
you don't get to do that.
I mean, you're alleging
war crimes. Yeah, you're alleging. I mean, and that's fine. And like, just she's
The thing that I really
I'm
don't
not
like
a
about
fan.
her is she puts me in a position where I feel like I have to defend Donald Trump.
yeah, and agree with me.
And I
Two
hate
things that
that.
you hate to do.
I hate that.
Here's all you need to do there. Is you take Donald Trump out of the equation.
Anybody.
The behavior, yeah.
If she said this about, a NFL quarterback.
right,
Today is the first Sunday of NFL season this year. If she said that about Tom Brady, that would be ludicrous.
Yeah, I would die for Tom Brady. I would jump in
Sorry,
front of
bad
him.
example.
Yeah.
If she said that about Kirk Cousins,
No, I think, but yeah, I mean, like I've thought about this a lot because this comes up every once in a while. People will ask me my opinion about like Donald Trump, and I have no problem whatsoever saying that I see narcissistic personality traits and providing evidence for that. But I do have a problem with obviously saying he's a narcissist.
Yes.
Because obviously you have to be able to assess somebody, and you have to be able to sit down with somebody personally and actually
Usually
do that.
involves a conversation.
Exactly. I've never had
And
a
that's what I was
conversation.
going to say earlier is you can I would very happily and do happily accept if someone says, even if they are a clinician or whatever, they say something along the lines of, hey, here's an action taken by this person that I don't know, that I see on television. Here's an action that I have seen them take that concerns me, and here's why that would concern me.
Yeah, or saying like
That's fine.
these actions are consistent with
Sure.
this. I'd like that's the farthest I would go.
That even makes my teeth itch a little bit.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would do that in the sense that if we were talking about, if somebody asked me, is Donald Trump, does he have a narcissistic personality disorder?
Maybe.
I could say these things are consistent with it.
Yeah.
These are traits of it, but to actually sit down and say yes or no, I think you actually have to.
Right.
That
If you're going to say something definitive, like, you better know it.
Yeah, you better have that. Now, as far as mental health being contagious, no. And it bothers me that that's even being hinted at, right? Because that's that I feel
like
that
it's more than being hinted at.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it that sets back everything that we're doing as a profession. It sets it back so far. We're trying everything we can do to destigmatize mental health. And even the word mental illness bothers me. Yes. I like mental health as a term because we all have mental health. Mental illness feels like it's just different. Like that just, I don't know. I don't really care for it. And then the fact that we talk about, is it contagious? Oh man, I feel like that's just creating more stigma and going completely the opposite direction. So that's my take on that.
Syphilis is contagious and
That's
it can
true.
cause brain damage. Therefore, mental illness is contagious.
On her Twitter right now, we have a...
I wonder what Jim was over there playing with his phone about.
Yeah, no.
We have a mass killer.
I was like, why
chief.
am I over here being the
All right,
talking
that's
therapy
it.
with
Listen to
Jim's
this.
on his phone?
I know, yeah.
Listen to this. It's 2 minutes.
One that harbored dangers of such magnitude that it could be the key to future human survival.
The psychiatry professor from Yale, Dr. Bandy Lee.
Yale University psychiatrist Dr. Bandy X Lee met with 11 Democratic lawmakers and told them that President Trump is mentally unfit for office.
I'm Dr. Bandy Lee, a forensic psychiatrist, violence expert, and president of
Violence
the World
expert.
Mental Health Coalition. Since late
Yeah, me
March,
too.
the president has routinely downplayed the severity of a viral pandemic.
The risk to the American people remains very low.
While simultaneously claiming to have saved millions of lives.
Potentially 2.2 million people if we did nothing.
Any scientific analysis will reveal that his behavior is not saving lives, but causing tens, if not hundreds,
He
of
lied?
thousands of unnecessary deaths.
Liars
It
are
is
mentally
therefore no
ill.
exaggeration to say that we have a mass killer and killer-in-chief for president. We can now demonstrably
exaggeration
prove that
at all.
the president lacks mental capacity to discharge the duties of his office. This is not based on superficial public information,
Kinda
but
is.
on first-hand accounts by close associates and co-workers
Who are under
sworn
subpoena.
testimony at the highest level of criminal investigations.
Yeah,
Many
because criminal
ask,
investigations
is the
are how we
president
diagnose.
insane? The greatest proof is perhaps the influence he has on his followers. Dangerous
Did you just say that
mental
he's insane?
pathology
Yes.
bullies those who surround it into acquiescing and enabling it. We can see the effects through fixed false beliefs that are not amenable to facts, conspiracy theories, paranoia, or perceiving threat where it does not exist, violence proneness when beliefs are
Okay.
challenged,
All right,
and also
I'm done.
unconditional
I'm done.
obedience
Shut it
to
off. Shut it off.
leaders.
I have a question.
Yeah, I'm done.
I have an actual question. This is
Oh,
Donald
Dr. Lee.
Trump. This presidential administration in the United States of America is currently happening, so it's tough to talk about.
Okay.
Let me ask a question about something that happened in the past
Yeah.
that we have facts on and we can discuss.
Yeah.
So her assertion there is that Donald Trump's supporters have caught a mental illness
Yeah.
from the
The
president of the United States.
Yeah. Because they believe things that are not true.
Fine. I've never heard it. I've never heard anything put that way, and I think that's a silly way to put it, but
Yeah.
fine. I've never heard it said that way about Hitler and the citizens of Germany
Good point.
during the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Right. Right.
So wouldn't that be a more apt discussion about this anyway?
You're hitting on exactly
and
the
I'm not
thing.
comparing Hitler to Trump at all.
No.
That's
You're
not what I'm doing.
You're saying
I'm saying,
yeah.
wouldn't this be a more reasonable thing to
Yes.
discuss if we were going to discuss
Yes.
communicative mental illness?
Right. This is what I mean when I say mental illness and mental health is in a different lane than sociology and then politics and then culture.
Sure.
Adolf Hitler believed something that we all find repugnant. He believed a racist concept,
Right.
and he had an idea of taking over the world.
Of course, you're not speaking for Laura, but yes.
Yes. Adolf Hitler ran on that campaign. He told people what he believed.
Mm-hmm.
They said, hey, we like your ideas. They didn't know the full aspect of them.
Sure.
They walked forward. He was elected democratically. Then he did what all politicians in all nations do. He lied. They all do it. Clinton did it. Lincoln did it. Lincoln suspended habeas corpus and then lied that he was doing that. He just suspended, like, human rights and then, like, did what he had to do. So all these politicians lie. It is not a mental illness. All politicians cultivate sheep, people that support their point of view, and then an alliance forms and they just go with that point of view. That is not disease. Disease and mental illness are different than that. That is a different thing.
I would say if there's any issue here, if there's a problem with people who support Donald Trump, if you want to go so far as to say that there is some sort of mental problem, and I'm not saying mental illness very purposefully, if there's some sort of problem in the thinking for people, it is that we, people, have a very hard time saying that we were wrong about something.
Yes.
Sure.
Especially if something is not demonstrably right or wrong.
Right.
And supporting a political candidate, it's really tough to say whether or not that is demonstrably right or wrong.
It's just
it's
wrong.
never going to be black and white.
No, and it's wrong for her to conflate, and this is my beef, okay? I'm not going to stand here and be like, boy, Donald
Jim
Trump...
just held up a steak, by the way.
Yeah, I'm holding up steak. This is my beef. This is my chicken. I have no problem with people saying, boy, I really disapprove of Donald Trump.
Fine.
And boy, I really don't like the way his supporters seem to
Fine.
be doing conspiracies. And boy, I don't like all this fake news stuff. And boy, I don't think that he's very competent to do his job. And boy, he seems to really be like putting shine on a turd. He mishandled a tragedy, and now he's trying to
All
embellish
of
his
those things
success.
are your opinions.
Fine. Those are all lovely.
Yeah.
Now, if you say, Jim, diagnose him. No, you're asking me to do something that has nothing to do with any of this.
Right.
Mental illness and the treatment of human disease and human anguish and suffering is fundamentally different than the political animal of a bad leader doing bad things.
Right.
Nazism is the one thing that most of us, I mean, it's changed a little bit in the last 4 years, but you could have just asked most people, do you think being a Nazi is bad? And almost everybody in America would go, yes, Nazi is bad. If you said, do you think being a
I think
Nazi...
that's still the case. I
it's
think
still
almost everyone
mostly-
in America would still say that.
Mostly still has bad PR.
Yeah.
But then if you said, do you think being a Nazi is a mental illness? Almost everybody would have gone, well, no, that's not what a mental illness is. It's a political philosophy that I deeply disagree with. Do you think slavery was wrong? Yes. Do you think the Confederacy point of view was wrong in wanting to defend the institution of slavery? Yes. If you could call that a name like Nazi, and that just had a name, like that entire suite of ideas, the Confederate idea, if you could just call that a word, would you say that that's a bad thing? Yes.
Being
Is it a mental
pro-slavery.
illness?
Being pro-slavery.
Yes. Being pro-slavery a mental illness? Well, no. It's a very deeply problematic economic and philosophical concept. Is it a mental illness? No, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Mental illness is depression. Mental illness is schizophrenia. It is a disease of the brain, of the mind. And we clinicians are trained to heal a diseased and suffering person. We are not qualified to stand up and shout into society that the President of the United States has narcissistic personality disorder and is a fucking murderer. You are not qualified to do that. You shouldn't have a license. She probably doesn't. I think I've looked it up. She's a professor at Yale. And everybody goes, psychiatry professor at Yale. Being a professor at Yale is like being a goddamn art instructor at an institute and then trying to say that you're fucking Pablo Picasso. No, you're not. You teach it. You're not qualified to do it.
Now,
That is my
so
name.
angry.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that just hit me. Why I feel uncomfortable with the whole thing. It just kind of hit me all of a sudden. Was just the idea. I don't like the idea of trying to define him as mental illness and then that being the cause of all of these problems, because I think that sends the deeper message that people with a mental health disorder can't function, or people with a mental health disorder can't do blank. They can't be leaders. They can't do.
That's what
all this
disqualifies
other.
them.
Yeah, and that's bullshit.
It also, exactly.
Yeah, he's a terrible leader for all sorts of reasons.
That's what I said to Andrew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like that's the problem. I have no problem with, hypothetically, I have no problem if it came out that I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. If it came out that Joe Biden has a mental health disorder, it's fine. I want to know, is he coping with it?
Yeah.
Can he do his job?
Yeah.
Can he function? Can he be a good leader?
Yeah.
Because having a mental health disorder does not mean that you're not going to be a good leader. It doesn't mean that you can't be the CEO of an organization.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you can't be a mentor to somebody.
That's why she is so dangerous.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this from a different angle.
Yeah.
I am a public figure, a different degree from Donald Trump, but I am a public figure. If a psychologist, psychiatrist, psychology professor, or anyone else who claimed to have some kind of credential said, I've listened to Jacob over the years on different podcast apps, and here are his mental issues.
Yeah.
I would have a real big problem with that.
Yeah,
I'll go one step beyond that. I work with 2 mental health professionals on a podcast. And if one of them went out in public and said, here are Jacob's mental issues, I've never employed either of you as a therapist. I've never come to either of you for therapy.
Right.
Like, I would have a big problem with that.
You should.
And fairly so.
And you should sue.
We as a society.
I've got to delete some tweets here.
Yeah, real quick, though. Let me just delete. That's starting now, right?
Yeah, from now on.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine. Let the lawyers read that.
But I mean, beyond that, as a society, we don't want this to be a thing.
No, you do not.
No, yeah, exactly.
It is weaponizing mental health. Dr. Lee is dangerous to society because, one, she stigmatizes mental illness so that mental illness is the reason Trump is bad.
Right.
Hitler was bad because Hitler is bad. And that's another thing. One, she's bad because she is stigmatizing mental illness and making it so that mental illness is frightening and scary, and it's the reason somebody's unqualified. Yeah. Two, you're also giving him a free pass on his entire political philosophy.
Right.
If you disagree with Donald Trump's immigration plan, the way to confront that is not saying he has a mental disease. Because now we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Right.
Now we're not talking about whether you should build $1 trillion wall. Now we're not talking about whether or not children should be put in cages that the Obama administration built. Now we're not having a nuanced conversation about where we all land in all this and what our society wants to do and whether or not we're going to take in refugees from burning countries somewhere else. We're not going to talk about any of that anymore. Why? Because he's mentally ill.
Right.
So that just apparently explains all of his points of view. It also means, by the way, Bandy, that if you believe he is an actual killer, he can never be charged. Because now you're saying he should be in a hospital. When really, he's the most competent person we have. He's the president. He gets to make decisions, and he is held accountable for those decisions. And we vote for it. And if he commits crimes, and there is such a thing as a legal repercussion for an executive, which, by the way, there's never been in American history, but there should be, but that's a whole nother conversation. So she's dangerous for all those reasons, and then chief among all of them, you are scaring away, and this is what ultimately won my argument with Andrew. The point that I made, all the other arguments I made, Andrew would grapple with them and kind of be like, I see the pros, I see the cons. Okay, cool. The one argument that he was like, and we're done, Jim. You just won the entire debate. I concede, you're right. And then he went on his show and was like, Jim's right. I'm wrong. I'm not going to talk about mental illness anymore.
I'm going to have to listen to this because I'm starting to question everything.
I'm summarizing.
Okay.
I'm summarizing. But the conversation came to a very abrupt end when I said, do you believe that there are people in the Donald Trump universe and tribe that could be capable of killing other people? And he said, yeah, I do think that. I said, great. Do you want them to talk to me? Would you prefer that they talk to a therapist? Yes, I would. Do you think you should really be screaming that their leader has a mental illness and mental illness is a bad thing and that they might have a mental illness by contagious disease? Do you really want to stigmatize it so much that they would never talk to a therapist because they're scared of ever being labeled as having a mental illness? Is that what you want? And he was like, and we're done. We are done here. I want everybody to get help. That's why you guys are supposed to be Switzerland. That's why healthcare is supposed to have nothing to do with any of this process. And the light suddenly came on for Andrew. And he was like, I just realized why we're not supposed to use you as a political weapon. Because you are supposed to be in a whole other zone that has to do with human health. And that's why we keep you guys sacred. That's why we don't use you. That's why we don't weaponize mental health. There are a million reasons to convince the public that Donald Trump is not a good president. Go use those.
Right.
You do not need me.
Right. Yes. It's not like he's
I am not the most convincing argument.
He's not giving us any other reason.
Yeah. Gosh, his resume is sterling.
We gotta
but
go
Jim
with
says that there might be a problem. Yeah. Dr. Lee said that he might have mental illness. No. Now I'm going to just discount all of his great achievements. Fire him because he's bad at his job.
I would have her in court today. If I were him, I'd be like, why aren't we already in court with this lady?
Here's one of the reasons I believe, and I'll double check on this, but I'm going to say it confidently because I do believe that whenever I first discovered Lee a year and a half or 2 years ago, I looked into this, and I believe the conclusion that I discovered was she does not have a license to practice. So she is a professor, and then she is a quote-unquote violence expert. She is a violence expert the same way I am the best therapist in Las Vegas.
But that doesn't mean that...
Mine probably has more credibility. I have real people that voted for me. Like, it's the same level of, you just started calling yourself that.
But that doesn't mean, like, just a private citizen. Forget who you are, what your qualifications are, your credentials, whatever.
Right.
Just a private
Can you just
citizen
allege that?
doesn't just get to allege crimes
Right.
against anyone else publicly and face no repercussions for that at all.
Right. I do think that there is some level, like when it comes to a public figure, there is some level of...
Certainly.
They
Now,
can't get you for
Now
it.
then, if she had said, Donald Trump has caused the deaths of X number of people.
No problem.
Via
You can just say
coronavirus,
that.
via COVID-19.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an opinion.
You can say that.
And that it's tough to it's impossible to prove one way or another to truly prove it.
Right.
And when I say prove, I mean like legal, the legal definition of the word prove.
Right.
You can say, like, in my opinion, Donald Trump has caused the deaths of numerous people.
Right.
To say that Donald Trump intentionally is a big word.
Oh, yeah. It's the word.
Intentionally killed
Yeah.
everyone who died from the coronavirus.
And that's what she says.
I know people that have died from the coronavirus.
Right.
Jacob Smith, know individuals that died from COVID-19.
Right.
I don't think Donald Trump
Premeditated the murder
thought
of those
about
people.
those specific people
Right.
at all.
And that's where, this is another thing that is just one more thing that pisses me off about Dr. Lee, Reverend Lee, Her Holiness, the Lee. I'm pissed about this too, Lee. Boy, you seem to have some pretty strong opinions about conspiracy theories, while you're telling everybody that the President of the United States and a cabal of his closest supporters premeditated the mass homicide of our fellow citizens.
That's just ridiculous.
But you're against conspiracy theories.
Right.
Well, I mean,
But that one's true. And you will say that. And it's not like, here's another thing. If Nick said that, I would be horrified, and I would be like, hey, buddy, that's super distasteful. Please don't say it on Pod Therapy. Say it to me at the bar. Whatever. That's fine, right? Fine. But I would also not hold Nick very accountable. Nick has never been an expert witness in a court of law. Nick is in no way trained as a forensic psychologist. I would have no expectations that he really knows dick about the law. Okay? Most legal interference he's ever had is probably paying a speeding ticket. This woman actually is a forensic psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. What forensic means is that she is actually trained to go into a court of law and to present information in the verdicts, or in influence verdicts about guilt and innocence. She absolutely is trained to know what it means to say he premeditated the serial murder of these humans. He's not just lying to get reelected, he is lying homicidally. And by the way, that's ridiculous. Occam's razor is
Right.
a skill that we all deploy in philosophy and in psychology and in science, which says this: the simplest explanation is usually the right one. Giant international conspiracy plotted for years to murder all of our countrymen? Or he is incompetent, not good at this, and has been lying because he doesn't want to have bad polls.
He is completely incompetent in every area except for this one.
Yeah, he's a mastermind, Lee. That's it. So, 60 days away from the election, and oh my God, wouldn't you believe it? The incumbent is downplaying his failures and embellishing his achievements.
Right.
Obviously, he has mental illness because no incumbent president has ever done that ever. Come on.
Also, you take away any future credibility of someone who does sit down with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And says, "Oh, yeah, this person does have some mental health issues."
Right. But that's another thing.
Like, come
He is
on.
a human being. Would I vote for him? Am I going to? No, I don't like Trump. I'm not going to vote for him. Fine. If he was a patient of mine, he deserves care. His mental illness should never be used against him. It is not my responsibility to call his employer, in this case the American people, and say he has a problem. That's not my place. If he said, I'm going to kill myself, Jim, then yes, I will legal 2000 you, and I will protect you. If he said, I am going to go murder this person, there's a governor in Alabama, and I'm going to put a hit on him, and I'm going to kill him.
Fine.
Okay, you're responsible for orchestrating an assassination. You're confessing to me, the therapist, that you intended to commit homicide.
Yeah.
That falls cleanly inside of my HIPAA requirements to now save you.
Right.
And to save that person's life.
Yeah.
Now I have a duty to warn. That is what the duty to warn is. It is actually detailed. And so what she's also doing is scaring people away from mental health. Unacceptable.
Yeah.
If Donald Trump does have a mental illness, that is none of your goddamn business, Dr. Lee.
Also, now this is
Reverend
one I
Lee.
need to talk to the opening argument guys about. I wonder if there is a HIPAA case where you could say, "Hey, you examined me. You didn't have my permission to examine me.
Yeah.
But you examined me and then publicly announced your diagnosis of me."
To warn people of me?
No, but I wonder if that could be considered a HIPAA violation.
Oh, God.
By certain.
There's no informed
I don't
consent.
think so, because you wouldn't have the informed consent to start
But
with.
that's okay. So
That's the thing. Is
the
like,
trickiness of HIPAA.
part of it is
Yeah.
is the
You're
lack of
guaranteed the
consent as
protections.
well.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're guaranteed the protections of HIPAA once you enter into the agreement with the clinician.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a one-way thing. Like once you've entered into my office and you've signed your informed consent, I now have responsibilities to you.
Yeah.
If you're just Joe Schmo walking down the street and let's say you mug me and then the news comes over and talks to me and says, Jim Jobin got mugged today, and I say, yeah, the guy looked like this and that, and I think he had a mental illness. Like, this gets complicated now, because if I'm just Joe Schmo and I say you have a mental illness, fine, you're just blabbering. I'm rendering a medical diagnosis.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a thing. Even though on this show we've tried to downplay like the power of diagnosis because we don't want people to be distracted by it, it's a legal thing.
Yeah.
A diagnosis is a legal thing if we want it to be. It matters. It's not just floaty opinion. Only some people can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a special power. It's one of those invisible legal powers that doesn't really matter until it matters.
That's kind of my point, though. Is I bet I could find board members, HIPAA board
Right.
members somewhere that would say like, yes, that is a HIPAA violation.
So here's where the
now,
real
right or wrong,
consequence exists.
I'm just thinking out loud about this.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good question,
yeah.
but here's the real nuanced question. I remember this is when I first discovered Lee, this is what I looked into. So I believe that she's from Yale, which is, I think what is it, Massachusetts, Maryland?
By the way, if I were Yale, I'd be like, you need to
Horrified.
shut up.
Yeah,
You
just
need to shut the
horrified.
fuck up.
She's-
Never say
She's
our name.
former, I think. I don't even think she's there.
She's
anymore.
got to be.
What, retired?
No.
Consultant?
Oh, tenure. Yeah, she ain't
tenured.
going anywhere.
Yeah,
she's got
she's
tenure.
tenured, I'm sure.
So here's the problem. I looked into her, and I believe she does not have a license to practice anymore.
Okay.
So this is problematic, and this is something that the media never does a good job about. Like, if Nick or I go on interviews, and you'll actually hear Nick do this sometimes, like he did it on the Instagram thing. anytime that we are publicly facing and we're presenting our credentials, we're pretty careful to say what they are. And that's because we actually have a responsibility, like to our boards and to our community, to present our credentials accurately.
Sure.
Because that's a problem. If you misrepresent yourself, it's problematic for a lot of reasons. You get in trouble with your own board. Technically, you could, find yourself on the wrong end of legal trouble as, like malpractice or whatever, or impersonation. It's not something you do ethically. But in the media, they never give a shit. And so they just say, she's a psychiatrist.
Right.
And that's a broad word. A medical degree does not make you a psychiatrist. You went to school and you have a piece of paper, just like a bachelor's or a master's or a doctorate.
Just like going to law school doesn't make you a lawyer.
No.
Right.
Yeah. You're not a lawyer just because you have a Juris Doctorate.
Right.
Cool. Go pass the bar exam and then be in good standing in your state. That's why you can't walk over to California and practice law if you're a lawyer in Nevada. Same thing goes for psychiatry. This is where I believe that she's actually skirting. She doesn't have a license, so she has no repercussions. It's the same reason Dr. Phil got rid of his license. Dr. Phil won't have a license anymore. Why? Because then we can say whatever the hell he wants. He's just a private citizen who's highly educated.
Well, who raised him?
She can say that. He can say whatever he wants. Donald Trump's mentally ill. He can say that because he is not rendering a diagnosis, because he no longer has the power to render a diagnosis. Dr. Bandy X Lee does not have the power to render a diagnosis. She is just a professor, just an educator, and a quote-unquote violence expert, and so she can do whatever she wants. And so this is why she can do this.
But you could still be found guilty of libel.
Oh, yeah. That's fine.
You get libel, slander, all those things.
Yeah. And those are fun legal questions to have. But, I just think that she's horrific. I just think her perspective is terrible. She is now engaging in her own conspiracy theories.
Seems like not great.
She is speaking ill of entire 50% of our entire continent. That's not okay. She is scaring people away from mental illness. She is stigmatizing mental illness. She is making sure that there's portions of humanity that will not get help now, because they are weaponizing mental illness. And she is equipping the liberal side, the progressive side, the anti-Trump side, and saying, you know what you should incorporate into your criticism? Mental illness. Call Uncle Tom whenever you go to your Thanksgiving dinner. Call him schizophrenic. Call him mentally ill, because he just obliges Donald Trump and he's on Team Trump.
Yeah.
Because he supports him, you should now incorporate that into your conversation now. Let him know he's mentally ill.
Yeah.
And then tell him he should go see a therapist because he's broken. Something's wrong with him.
This is this bothers
Told you we
me
don't
so
have enough
much.
time.
I know.
Dr. Lee is
just
horrific. She is a monster.
It's just undoing
A
all
monster.
the hard work that we have been doing for the last decade.
Dr. Lee, I will not be going to your church.
I mean, I'll go, but
I'm not donating.
I'm not tithing.
I'm not tithing. Well, I'm going to tithe, but not a full 10%. I'm going to skim a little off the top. I'll give God God's money, but I want to give God the first fruits.
I'm going to take change out of the plate.
First fruits of the harvest.
I'll sing the hymns, but in the key I want to.
In the key I'm going to do. Reverend Lee. All right. We should probably end it there.
Yeah, I think we had other stuff we needed to talk about, but I think we'll do that in the next episode.
I need to go breathe.
Yeah, you need
Anybody got a cigarette?
Pick the wrong day to stop sniffing glue.
I use that quote probably once a month. That is one of the most enduring pieces of comedy I've ever seen.
I love that movie. Anyway, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to our THERAPALs.
We
have a few new ones. We have Cursing Moscow Mitch with Eternal Ingrown Nails.
Very good.
The Man, the Myth, the Scoop. Those are good ones.
Thank you both.
Thank you both. And we want to thank our illustrious THERAPODs, the mysterious and elite members of our secret society, the THERAPRODUCERs. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, Ellie O'Dare, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Don, and ex officio board member Crazy Banana Scoop.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy. And thank you for supporting mental health.
That is, thankfully, all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening this episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us on Facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, and at Patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tanchman.
I'm Reverend Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see your appointment next week.
Go to votejim.net. Vote for me, best of Las Vegas. Votejim.net. Hooray!
And check out some of the other poets.
No,
people on
don't
there.
check out those guys. They're all terrible.
A lot of people doing good work.
They're all pretenders, trying to get my crown. I
Dr.
can't
Lee
have
is in there.
Dr. Oh, if somebody would have nominated her just to piss me off.
Write in votes.
Write in votes.
Oh, God.
All right,